What up, fellow Marauders? It's your boy Kellz, aka Special K, back again with another episode of the Culture Marauders podcast, the show where we maraud on all culture and deliver the goods to you, the listener, and the viewers out there. Hey, it is Thursday. Friday. Let me go and pull that off. It is Friday, June 19, 2020, and happy Juneteenth, y'all. Happy Juneteenth. For those of y'all that are out there celebrating, everybody acknowledging Juneteenth has become a very, very big thing. Probably a lot of people weren't aware of what Juneteenth was until here recently with all the events going on in the world. But if you're celebrating, hey, celebrate smartly. For those of you that aren't aware of what Juneteenth is also known as Emancipation Day, or also America's second Independence Day. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863 that President Lincoln enacted after the end of the Civil War. Which basically freed all slaves. It really didn't get down to the last strongholds of the Confederacy until June 19th of 1865, and that was down in Galveston, Texas, where the last slaves were, made aware that slavery was over. So unfortunately, that was 2.5 years later, but better late than never, and that's why we celebrate today. And it's not just an African American thing; it's the end of slavery for all people. And as you can see, I am rocking my dashiki, African garment. Basically, a dashiki came from West Africa. It was used basically. It was in its original form. It was also a kind of like a tunic, a work tunic for the workers and farmers and stuff out in West Africa. And it was light enough to where they can still work but still be protected from the heat and the sun out in West Africa. Fast forward to the 60s and 70s with the civil rights movement. And Black Power movement, Black Panthers movement, you started seeing more of the African textiles as you see on my dashiki today. And basically, it was a symbol of Black pride, and just a fashion statement that can go along easily with the afro or the raised black fist. So happy Juneteenth. That's a little bit of a culture shot there for you, also. But like I said, celebrate responsibly, be safe, and let's keep pushing that equality out there, y'all. So. Like I said, episode 27, we've been rocking pretty well. Yesterday, we're going to keep riding this Father's Day wave. I think we had a really good conversation with Dominique Marks from Raw Sex Podcast, but today we're gonna bring it home and get a little bit more deep into this. Not as light as it was yesterday. And so today we're going to be episode 27. I'm calling this one "Things Fall Apart." And today we're going to be marauding on personal growth. And my special guest today is a published author and the host of Dad Starting Over podcast, special guest D.S.O. And for at his request and anonymity, I said it right there. You heard me, D.S.O. Anonymity. So he wants to keep his image and everything off, and we're gonna respect that. But he is still gonna drop us with some super dope content and information, and we're gonna talk about his personal story and his growth and everything. I really think y'all gonna dig this episode. I did he gave me some information to kind of familiarize myself with exactly what he's doing out there. And for the fellas out there going through a rough time, with divorce and self-doubt, this episode is for you. So D.S.O., take it away, man. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming out. So, before we get into this, give me a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, I'm a 40-something-year-old guy who has 3 kids. And I've been divorced for going on 8 years now, just over 8 years now. And I started writing on the topic of divorce and starting over and my whole experience about 2 years into my divorce. Mm-hmm. And I really struck a nerve out there. I started getting web traffic right away, started a podcast, got some downloads. Mm-hmm. I've written 3 books around the topics of being a man and starting over in life and succeeding in relationships and all that good stuff. And I do go by the moniker of D.S.O, stands for Dad Starting Over. And you can find out more at dadstartingover.com. Yeah. And the books that I've written, you can find at all the major retailers. My bestseller is called The Dead Bedroom Fix, which is about sex and marriage, followed up by Now What, a guide for men starting over in life after infidelity and divorce. And then my third book is called Red Flags, which is for guys trying to learn what there is to look out for when you're trying to find Mrs. Right. So it's basically all the stuff I should have known 20, 30 years ago that I wish somebody would have sat down and told me and I put it out there on the website. I got dozens of articles out there, podcast episodes, and then the 3 books.
Right on, right on. So, hey, you basically have the male handbook out there, and I was reading through the stuff, and I was like, because I come from a divorce, and this is probably about 13 years ago. So I know that, and I wish I had a guide or a document or something like that, or this handbook that you created, to kind of get me through that, and that probably would have saved me a lot of headache and a lot of heartache as well. So I appreciate you. Just a little bit that I was able to read through. I mean, it was deep. It was deep stuff. You didn't sugarcoat anything. It was like a lot of raw emotion out there. So I really appreciate it. So, fellow Marauders, as usual, if you want to join the conversation, hit us up via comments. I don't think anything's off the table. Questions asked. So while we're sitting there chopping it up, rapping, and D.S.O is dropping his knowledge on us, feel free to jump on and ask questions, and we'll go ahead and get them addressed. So, all right. So let's go ahead and get into it. So,
all right.
That's it. So, who is D.S.O?
Well, like I said, 40-something-year-old guy, dad. This isn't the D.S.O world is not my only job. It is started off as a hobby that's become a legitimate second business for me, but I do work more than full time, and I am remarried. My wife and I have a unique relationship in that we only see each other half the time, which I tell guys when they ask me what's the secret to the success of my second marriage. I says, I don't see her half the time. and she'd probably tell you the same thing. But she works outside. She works outside the state, so I'm basically still a lot of the time playing single dad. I'm Mr. House Cleaner. I'm homework helper. I'm the guy that's out playing basketball. I'm driving kids around, doing all that. So I still do that, even though I'm remarried, and still writing, still all that fun stuff. And it's been tough as the D.S.O business has taken off. It has been a real struggle for me to juggle all that, keep all the balls in the air, and not let anything drop. And and that's how you found me.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, it was just happened to be one of those things by chance. And I saw it and I was like, this is pretty interesting. And I just clicked on it. I was like, you don't see this a lot, right? Like from a male's point of view, you can go and find a million different books and magazines on the web for women and all these things like your Cosmos and all this stuff. But for guys, there's nothing like this, man. And I really think what you're doing is outstanding, first of all. And I thank you for it, man. And granted, I'm remarried and happily moved on and wasn't able to reap those benefits of the stuff that you put out there. But there's fellas out there that I know for a fact could benefit off this. And you obviously know too, because you turned it into a really successful business. So
I hear from these guys every single day. I get emails and emails, and it's I don't know if you can classify it as there's a phenomenon of what I went through, which was personally, we'll get into that, which was a cheating wife left me with the kids and so forth. But man, that's a story that I'm hearing again and again and again.
Yeah.
And there was no real go-to source for, hey, been there, done that, and here's what I did. And here are my thoughts around the relationship game and all that. It's piecemeal out there. There's a book a little bit about this, men's rights things. There's a little book about parenting. There's a website but nothing that puts it all together. And it does need to be all together in one package and one website. Because even if I try to, hey, let's split this up and let's talk about sex and marriage, invariably somebody will say, well, my wife cheated on me and I went through this, and this. I'm dating after a divorce and I'm going through this. So it all blends together. And that's why I created the website the way I did.
Yeah. And it's very well put together. You got, the coaching, your podcast, your articles. It's like a I can't even explain. It's like a all-in-one resource center.
There you go.
These things, man. And I think it's really dope.
So I appreciate it.
I read that you're a hooper. So who's your team?
Man, I'm kind of a bandwagon jumper. I'm from back in the day when it was Jordan, back in the 90s. That was my team, the Bulls, all the way back to, the old Jordan Magic, Bird era. That's my thing. So right now, probably, I hate to be one of those guys. I love LeBron.
Okay.
Wherever he goes, I like it. I like the Pelicans a lot.
Okay.
I went to see them play. I like Ingram, Zion, Zoe, so they're fun to watch.
Okay.
I like them all.
All right. So with the Pelicans, and I'm sorry, we're gonna get into this, but when you mentioned Hooper, I'm a Hooper. I love basketball myself. So I like the Pelicans, man, but I'm not too convinced on Zion yet. I think that the potential is there, but he's got to get his health and his weight under control, or we're going to be looking at another Larry Johnson type, Sean Kemp type situation.
You are exactly right. When I saw him, he was. They came to Indiana to play, watch the Pacers game. First thing my son and I said when he stepped out in the court was, "Ooh, somebody's getting a little big. Somebody's putting on some weight."
Yeah,
and not in a good way either. So you're right. He's got those genes that he can blow up, and he's got to watch it. And he was injured when we saw him. He was limping around. He decided not to play. He warmed up with the team, but he had a bad ankle or something.
Yeah, my buddy here called him Fat Boy. He commented.
he's got a caboose on him.
Yeah, and he's a big dude, but he's athletic. That's what's so weird. It's like his second jump is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You ever watch? My boys like to sit and watch the mixtape highlights of him in high school. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's like watching a man out there with a bunch of preschoolers.
So what did you think about The Last Dance? I know you said you were a Jordan fan also. What did you think about that?
Loved it. I thought that was really good. I was really surprised at how open Jordan was.
Mm-hmm.
Sat in that chair and just let it all out, let his emotions out and everything.
Yeah.
Excited to see of him. I really liked it.
Yeah, I like that too. And even his daughter said she didn't understand. Like, man, this is my dad. Like, and she, I think she learned more about him through that than she did actually just growing up around him. And she said that. So.
And they didn't pull any punches with that show either. They talked about the gambling, the whole nine.
Yeah, and I'm glad they went into that. And it was kind of anticlimactic at the end. I mean, we all knew how it ended, but it's like it had built up with each episode was just better than the one previous. And by the time they got to the last two, you're like, okay.
I agree.
Yeah, but it was still good. I heard there's a Magic Johnson one waiting in the wings, and there's a Kobe one coming next month.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. So, all right. Enough about basketball. We can talk about that. So, reading your story, right? And, just what you had sent me, my story, and it was in 3 parts. And it basically broke down, from, you starting out, working and then, deciding to, start your, go the entrepreneur route, building off that. And, your girlfriend at the time, she was your wife, but she was your girlfriend at the time, her being away, and you kind of hooping, hanging out with the fellas, making buddies at work. And as I read on, it's kind of like the dynamic shifted in a sense. And it's like everything that you had at the end of the day, she had, minus the the infidelity and stuff like that. But so I found it fascinating because it was like reading through it, it's like you can definitely see where the story shifted and where potentially where things could start falling apart, right? So if you want to go into your story a little bit more for the listeners out there.
And my story is not unique by any means. And I hear it again and again. And I think the general theme that I hear from a lot of guys is they lose their independence.
Right.
When they hook up with a woman and become one and become this married couple, especially when kids come in the picture. Oh man, guys just drop their hobbies. They drop their friends. They drop everything to become this provider, what I call. And I always say that there are kind of, to super simplify it, there are 2 sides to a man. You've got the provider side and you have the lover side. And a lot of guys just drop the lover stuff completely. Man, they gain weight. They don't care what they look like. They don't care about hanging out with friends and all other stuff, which is all of the stuff that attracted their wife to them to begin with. And I fell into that trap big time. I, like you said, prior to getting married, I was very much Mr. Independent, hang out with the guys. I would travel everywhere for work, and I would hang out with the dudes that I was traveling with. It was very much a bachelor life. And when I look back on that, was when I probably grew the most financially, intellectually, the whole 9 yards. And then my temperament and my personality was such that as soon as I became this domesticated guy in a marriage, just slowly but surely, turn the knob down. If I was at an 11 before, I was down to a 3 and a 4 and a 2, and it just wore me down. And frankly, I became a very unattractive partner. And a lot of my zip and energy that was there when at the early part that attracted her to me was gone. And what was left was this sweet guy who was a good dad, and that's about it.
And by no means am I calling you this, but it can kind of be perceived as kind of like a sucker in a way, right? Like
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
you lose what it was that attracted you to that person, like you said. And when we're riding high and running wild and running the streets, we're interested, and all that stuff. But when you become what you think that your partner wants, that's when you kind of compromise, your self values and not, I wouldn't say self values, but perception and the things that made you that person, right? The things that people knew you as and knew you for, and you kind of compromise that, and yeah, it can, in a sense, kind of drive that person away. It's like, well, you're not even the person that I wanted in the first place, but
Exactly.
Inadvertently, you're trying to change to make them happy, but you're not.
And let's be honest, as men, we see not only is it, well, this is what I think she wants, but it's flat out what she tells you she wants.
Yes.
And she will whittle you down and test you to see exactly what it is you're made of.
Exactly.
She will shame you along the way. You're going to do what? You're going to go out with your friends. Why aren't you doing this? You're going to try for what kind of job? No. We have bills to pay.
Right.
Every single step of the way. And the more you get whittled down, the worse and worse it gets.
Right. And I've been fortunate enough not to experience that in both marriages. And,
good.
My ex-wife, very, very good person. She just wasn't the right person, especially at that point in my life. And
that's very mature of you to say. I like that.
We went through it where, we're at 15, 16, almost 16 years later. Couldn't always say that, but you mature and I apologize, for my part in why our marriage didn't work out. But my wife now, man, it's like you when you found your second chance. That's exactly how I felt, man. It's like I was in a different place, still fairly young when we met, but in a different place. But I understood exactly, myself more and what it took to make a marriage work. So it's nice to get that second chance.
Good. You had your practice marriage, your starter marriage, and got that out of the way. Do it right this
time. Man, but in a sense, it's kind of what it is, because I got married first time at 21. Like, what the hell do you know at 21?
Oh, wow, that's young.
And luckily, we were friends, and now I can call her a friend still today. And she's remarried and a great guy, and he's a good dude, and he takes care of my son, and raises him the right way, good values and stuff like that. But on the other hand, man, I am ecstatic and happy with where I'm at today. And it's just, I feel like I'm in a better place overall with my previous relationship with my ex-wife, as well as with my current wife, and just everything is better. It's not that awkward feeling,
Good. Yeah.
So why is it important to tell your story?
There, a lot of guys get a lot of mixed signals when it comes to this kind of stuff. And they don't know which way to turn. And there's a lot of shame involved in men being emotional, a lot of shame in men feeling lost.
Right.
And a big message I hear from a lot of guys is, man, I feel horrible, terrible, everything. My life is falling apart. How can I quickly just make this stop?
It doesn't.
and I think women have a much better grasp on the concept of, I'm going through horrible stuff. This is normal. This is natural. I just got to go through it and get whatever help I can get. Women reach out to friends, they reach out to everybody. Men just sit alone in their little apartment and sulk and just say, all right, let me just drink my sorrows away, or let me just pray for this to pass. And they don't realize they need to do some active things to move on in life. That was a chapter. It's over. It's time to put on your big boy boots and get to work. This is nothing that's just going to pass on its own. You got some real stuff to do. And that's what my second book, Now What, is very much about, is all those steps of, hey, dude, it's over, we're gonna move on. I mean, for a lot of guys, just that concept of it's over, you got to move on, tough for them. Very tough.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary, right?
Well, not only that, but it's a concept of honor. A lot of men hide behind that concept of honor. They will find out that their wife cheated on 8 different men, gave him herpes. She had a drug habit he didn't know about, $50,000 of credit card debt, and they will still say, yeah, but I said I do, and I said my vows. I'm a man of honor. I'm going to follow this through and do whatever I can to win her back.
But it doesn't work out sometimes, and it's just, you got to move on, and like you said, right? So I think it's, and I'm going to walk it back a little bit to what, the first part of what you said, where the support system, right? It's the support system. I think if most men had the support system that women have, and I think it's more of like hey, bring it in, we got you, right? That's how we look at it. We got you, regardless, right or wrong, indifferent. They take care of each other. They talk it out. They may have it out or whatever. But at the end of the day, that woman's going to be taken care of by her female friends, and
You got it.
And then when it comes to guys, it's like, there's that stigma, like you said, being weak, right? And you don't want to show up to the court bringing that there, and guys are like, man, get the hell out of here, man. You gonna hoop or what? And it's just, and it sucks that it's that way. And and also a lot of guys don't know how to take stuff like that, right? Like they don't know how to give advice. Most guys don't, because either they can't relate to it, or they don't know what to say, or they don't want to get involved, and then be in the middle, and then the female hates them too, so it's just one of those things, man, where it's just like lone wolf, man, good luck.
And I actually I recognize the problem of a lot of men kind of doing things on their own, and I actually started a members group on my website called the D.S.O fraternity. And on that, we have regular meetings where we all get together and chat via Zoom and talk and share our stories. And that's been invaluable. Men just love to open up. Once they open up that faucet, they can't shut up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's therapeutic, man.
Absolutely.
I really think it's therapeutic. And these guys are getting these emotions and these pent up feelings and stuff that they probably really don't understand. They're getting this stuff out, man. And for you to be to provide that platform for them to do so, man, that's awesome. It's awesome. It can only help.
And there's something therapeutic too. It sounds silly, but I've had guys just tell me like, okay, you've never heard a story this bad. Let me tell you my story. And then I say, well, let me put you in touch with a guy that makes your story look like nothing. I mean, I had a guy who I interviewed a year or two ago, and he was stabbed 9 times in the back by his wife's lover.
Oh, shit.
So he was attempted murder. So he just went over to pick up his son from the wife. And next thing you know, some guy, he says, is punching me in the back. And I said, what's going on? Some guy's punched me in the back, and sure, blood's going everywhere. Ooh. He almost died. Wow. And I said, so, finding your wife's text messages to some guy is not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, it's horrible. It's awful. But when men hear that, they go, oh, well, maybe it's not so bad.
Exactly. Right. Well, okay. Maybe. Yeah. Let me dial it back. So, but I mean, I want to go into a little bit more about, within the story when D-Day came, and you called it D-Day. How was your reaction? Like, what was your immediate feeling from that? And, if you don't want to share that, man,
I'm very open about all of that. That was probably the darkest time for sure. I shouldn't say the dark. All the things that came after that were pretty dark, and it just kept going further downhill. But that was complete and total shock. A lot of guys' stories I hear, they have so many red flags leading up to it that they're just like, well, this is kind of the culmination of a lot of things. But I didn't have that at all. In hindsight, our relationship was very boring, what I call very blah. There was no real spark there, and she was desperately needing some kind of spark. But I didn't see it coming at all. And how I discovered it was what the modern day story right now is. Everyone is finding out about infidelities via Facebook, text messages, Instagram, direct messages, all that stuff. And mine was Facebook. She left herself logged into Facebook, and I went in and said, oh, what's this? And I don't know why I did it, but I saw the little indicator on the thing saying she had some messages, and I clicked on it and said, oh, whoops. And I didn't even know what the heck I was looking at. And I was like, I don't understand, because it was part of a conversation. She forgot to delete the last part of it.
Right.
But there was enough to know that this is sexual in nature. Why is she talking to this guy? Say, oh, wow. Wow. And what made it doubly awful was that I was on vacation at the time with the family.
Yeah, right. And I read that. And so it's like,
I am 1,000 miles away on a beach, day 2 of our vacation, laying on the couch with a laptop, reading this, going, well, what the hell do I do now? And what happened next was very, very common, which was, boy, did we really talk it out. And this is what's going on. And there was a lot of lying. Oh, it's not what it seems. It's just flirtatious. I know it's wrong. Blah, 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 blah. But
that doesn't make it any better because you're still entertaining it, right?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And so that gave me that little glimmer of hope of, okay, maybe it's not that bad. Maybe. But I tell you what happened the day we returned home is I got the "we're over" speech. So it was just biding time until we could get past that awkward stage of being in a family vacation, and then get home, and then back to her man, and it was over after that. And she filed for divorce immediately.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. Well, yeah, it sucks. I mean, there's no other way around it. And you said that, like, this sucks. And it's
Yes.
I found out, the same way in a sense. He said mine was Yahoo Messenger. And, it's one of those things where I saw it, and it's one of those things where, like, you get tunnel vision and you can't because all you hear is heartbeat. And
yeah, there you go. Yes.
Yeah, and it's just like, wow, it's like you're speechless. You're like, I started sweating. I was like, what the hell is going on? And it's one of those things. And like you said, the red flags were there. And it by all means, I'm not putting it all solely on her, because at 21, 22 years old, I was playing a role in that as well. And and now I can definitely own up to that. But it's just when you're confronted with it and when you see it right in your face, right? It's just one of those things where you're like, shit, this is really happening, and it's not comfortable. It's not fun. It's just, what do you do from there? And
it wouldn't be so bad if this happened really early on, prior to marriage, prior to kids and everything else. But that just super complicates everything. It just calls into question your future together. What are you going to do? What are you as a single man going to do? What about the poor kids? I mean, the kids just make everything just exponentially worse.
Yeah.
And it's been very hard on my kids on the early stage, especially one of them who is now 16 years of age, and she's had a rough go. She's been in and out of therapy, anxiety issues over this, all kinds of stuff. So it's been hard on everybody for sure.
And I read you described like how it affected each one of them, and your daughter shambles, right? Your oldest son, it's just kind of like shell shock.
Yeah.
And then your youngest was kind of too young to really.
He's never known any different, really.
Yeah, right. So it's just, okay, we'll see how this affects you along the way, but you'll be there to support. So yeah, man, it's that's tough. And because it would be different, like you said, if they were all small, and they wouldn't understand. But you said your daughter was a certain age when this happened, and old enough to understand, old enough to know what's going on. So that's definitely got to be tough. So how are you supporting them, throughout this? Because this is ongoing. Do they still see her? Or?
Oh yeah. Their time with her has gone up this past year. Okay. But prior to that, I had them. I would every now and then look at the calendar, just for, if possible, legal reasons in the future, if it ever came up, like, how much time are they spending with me? Oh. And I was looking at the calendar one time, and it was 70% of the time they were with me is what I came up with. But this past year or so, it's been pretty much 50-50. She very much, she being the ex-wife, very much went through a stage of new relationship, and she was putting all of her emotional, mental energy into that. She was very much in a very obsessive, kind of regressing back to a teenage phase, which is very, very common. And then I guess over this, year and a half ago, she kind of woke up and said, maybe I need to pay attention to the kids more. And she's kind of really cranked it up and volunteering to help with this and this and this. And there was initially a reaction out of me. I never verbalized this to her, but internally of saying, F you, where have you been all these years?
Yeah. And that's fair to ask, especially, reading what I read about how the whole thing went down. She was just kind of in her own thing. And like you said, just trying to recapture that youth and that vibe and stuff. And, the things she was doing. And so reading that, like, I have to ask, like, how did you never, like, ask her, like, hey, where's all this leading? And I know, you were supporting her in her endeavors and job and everything, but did it ever pop up in your head, like, hey, maybe this isn't what I think it is, prior to D-Day?
As in the marriage was going down, and why didn't I call it out saying this isn't going the way it should be?
Right. Or identify maybe some things that are maybe kind of lacking, or, maybe y'all come together and be like, hey, I see, like, this is going in the wrong direction. Let's talk about this.
I would say there's a couple of different things. One is that we were just so goddamn busy with kids and work and school and everything else that there was very little genuine emotional intimacy and connection there. Right. It was just, we were very much
probably roommates, huh?
Roommates, siblings, if you want to even go even further with it.
Wow.
Where it was just these two adults taking care of these kids, just partners in that, keeping this house afloat, paying bills and so forth. In addition to that, I was at the time, very passive. Not a very aggressive guy, go with the flow. Yeah, I'll do whatever. Yes, dear, happy wife, happy life kind of guy. And so when you do that and that becomes a habit for year after year after year, you just kind of learn not to question things, go with it because you don't want any kind of drama, very drama, averse,
Right.
which is very common with men. And it just culminated. And it took her to, smack me over the head with a proverbial hammer and woke me up and said, this isn't good. Look what I did. It's like, oh shit, you're right. It isn't good.
Yeah. So yeah, it's rough, man. And I know from my own experience, and my first situation, my first marriage wasn't the only time where I neglected a marriage as well, and I made the same mistake with my second, and fortunately we were able to fix it, before it got too far gone. And it was the same idea, man. Like, you're just working and building and trying to grow and build this empire, right? We were both still in the military at the time. We were just going. And at one point, it actually felt like I said to you, like you're just roommates. You're raising a family, you have kids, you're pushing, you're trying to promote, and we forgot about each other. And when you forget about each other, well, the potential for somebody to not forget about you creeps in. Fortunately, like I said, we had that talk, the whole sit down talk about what's happening, and look, there's a lot of blame, a lot of fingers pointed, a lot of hurt feelings. But at the end of the day, I think, at least for me, it made me acknowledge some shortcomings, and as my role as a husband, and you got to acknowledge that in order to grow and build. And she did the same. And because we just kind of laid all the cards out on the table, man, and talked it out, we were fortunately able to save our marriage, and our marriage is stronger than ever. So,
oh, that's awesome. I love it. And that's very, very rare. So you should pat yourself on the back for that, for sure.
Man, it wasn't easy, man. I'm telling you, like I was the asshole of the day for a good long time, man.
Nothing wrong with that. You got to be that every now and then.
Yeah, man. It sucks, but it is what it is. Hey, what up, Rob? That's my uncle. He's out there. So, but yeah, it's it's one of those things, man, and it's part of life, part of growth.
And you're hitting on I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying I still haven't got it figured out by any means, man, but I'm still learning. I'm still, trying to improve. So,
well, you're hitting on a big point, which is relationships take work. And anybody who tells you otherwise is completely bullshitting you, or they lucked into a relationship that is 1 in a million, which is everything just flows naturally, and they're so interconnected, and they're so made for each other, quote unquote, that things just go seamlessly. But man, that is so super rare.
Yeah.
For most of us, you're kind of fighting against very natural, primitive urges when you're saying, I'm with you and only you. You're going to be my best friend. You're going to be my lover. You're going to be my caregiver. You're going to be all these things wrapped into one person. And the other person says, yeah, ditto, you too. And to make that work, it's not just a natural thing where you just sit back and it just happens. No, the natural thing is for you to go out and between now and the day you die, get 20 more girlfriends. You get one girlfriend, get tired of her, go on to the next one. That's the quote natural thing to do.
Right.
So you're always kind of fighting against that, and she is too. And it's not just a matter of people are supposed to go out and have relations with a bunch of different people. It's not that simplistic. It's just that we're not necessarily supposed to be with one human being forever and ever and ever, unless you both have those tools. And it sounds like you both have those emotional, mental tools in your toolbox to make that work. And unfortunately, that's pretty rare.
Yeah. Well, I mean, counseling helps, man. Like, and
good.
That was the kind of like the coming to Jesus part, meeting for me, where you're confronted with all the shit that you've done or didn't do. And that counseling, man, it's like, man, like I got to get it together. And
that third party just to listen to your stories and just point at you and go, well, here's how you messed up. It's like,
and they did the same for her too, So it wasn't let's attack old Kellz right here. No, it wasn't like that. It was fair, it was fair. It was just, you gotta take that walk with your head down, hat in hand type thing. But yeah, it makes you stronger, it makes you better, it makes you more cognizant of the moves you make in your marriage and the things it takes to keep that thing upright. So definitely. So Hey, for fellow Marauders, all of y'all just tuning in, appreciate it. I'm here with author and owner of the D.S.O brand, Mr. D.S.O himself. And if you're looking at a gray block, no, I'm not talking to myself. He's there, but just for the sake of keeping his identity intact. Hey, he's coming at us just by voice. So he's dropping some serious knowledge on us about starting over, the dad starting over brand, and just his journey, from infidelity and divorce and moving forward, and how he's helping fellas going through it, today. So moving on to the next topic. So we talked about the infidelity. As a man, how did this affect you?
It changed everything. It changed my identity, how I looked at interpersonal relationships. I mean, not just romantic, but every other kind of relationship. It was just this giant wake-up call for me. And my personality is such that I'm pretty obsessive and analytical about things. Like basketball. We talked about basketball. Back when I was a kid, junior high, I was Mr. Basketball. Studying, watching, going to practice, first one in, last one out. Very obsessive about it. Fast forward to adulthood, and I picked up guitar. I want to play guitar all day, every day. I'm thinking about guitar. I'm studying guitar, photography. So this was my new thing, which was, why the hell did this happen to me? Why is this such a common thing that I'm reading about again and again? What are some things you can do to prevent it, to alleviate the trauma from it, to all those things? So none of that was in my mental framework in any way, shape, or form prior to this happening. It was just like a whole world that I hadn't even conceived of before. I was very much in the dark about all this. I did have experience with women and dating and so forth, but nothing this dramatic with the family and the kids and the infidelity and all that stuff. That was all pretty damn new to me. So how did this change me as a man? It really very much boosted up my manliness, for lack of a better word. Really focused on improving myself as a man, physically, mentally, becoming a more selfish guy, to be honest with you. And there's really nothing wrong with that. And that was a tough little mental hurdle for me, is, if you don't take care of yourself, everything else just kind of goes to shit pretty fast. Your family, everything, your relationships and all that stuff. You do need time to say, this is my time. I'm doing this for me. And I've done a lot more of that. So it has changed just about everything.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool. And it's a hell of a wake-up call, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I know for me, it was like, what the hell does this person have that I don't? You start questioning yourself, right? And things like that. And then, you go through like a gamut of different emotions, from anger to sadness to, self-doubt, and, just all those different things, man. It sucks, man. It puts you through the ringer. But you're right. You do have to start being selfish for yourself at some point, just to rebuild yourself and build that confidence back, because, it could have happened either way, and one of those things is like, you just kind of got to pull yourself up, pull yourself together. Yeah, it's going to suck. Allow yourself a little time to be down. But you got to pull yourself together, man, because, in your case and my case at the time, there was kids involved. You got to be there for your kids. So, yeah. It's definitely one of those things where it'll change you. And like you said, it changed every aspect of your life. It did the same for me. And, just the look out for yourself type thing. And, and it's hard to do sometimes, because like for me, I had to question, like, am I really this person? And it's like, or am I doing this just to kind of cover up the fact that I'm hurt? So it's just, but at the end of the day, you do have to, that self-care and that, taking care of yourself, rebuilding yourself, that's so important. And
you got it.
A lot of people forget about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's talk about the brand, right? The Dad Starting Over brand. Your website, man, it's got like a litany of different things, a bunch of, like I said, it's an all-in-one, like a Google for resources for, guys going through this stuff, man. So what does the Dad Starting Over process look like? Take us from the top, where, you get somebody comes to you like, hey, man, this is what I'm going through. What does that process look like?
It's funny. It seems to be the gateway to my little world, as far as these people that contact me are concerned. These guys, is the one book that is sold so well, called The Dead Bedroom Fix, which is all about, hey, men, you don't like your sex life. Here are some things that you're doing wrong that you can fix to improve it a great deal. And I have, dozens of reader stories of people that say, yeah, it works for them. It's just basically putting a mirror in front of guys' faces and saying, look what you're neglecting doing in your life.
Mhm.
Well, it's funny because men are pretty simple creatures. And some of these guys out there that contact me have the worst stories imaginable. They are in abusive relationships with women that have really bad personality disorders, narcissistic tendencies. Some of them are physical abuse, emotional abuse. And then they're pouring their guts out to me, and the men can book time with me one-on-one, and we're chatting. And I say, well, what is it you want exactly out of this?
Mhm.
And they say, well, I read your book, so obviously I want more sex.
Right.
I said,
That's simple, right?
and I said, I think you got deeper issues here.
Mhm.
So it's funny, the I want more sex avenue is how they get in. But once they're in and they read a lot of the articles, they read the other two books, they realize, oh, yeah, this was a really bad relationship from the get-go. And
Right.
here's some of the things I did bad. And here are the red flags that showed me early on that she wasn't cut out for this whole wife game.
Mhm.
And it just opens the doors from there for them. And, I have articles. There's private Facebook groups. We have groups for guys in dead bedrooms, groups for guys starting over after divorce, groups for guys dating after divorce, all these articles around that in the books as well. And business-wise, I've thought maybe I should, because it's so popular, maybe I should focus just on the dead bedroom side of things and make that kind of my brand. But no, because it all bleeds together.
Right.
Like I say, when the guys come to me and say, I'd like to fix my bedroom, and then I say, well, tell me about your wife. And then for the next hour, it's horror story after horror story.
Yeah, you don't even get to the bedroom part, right? And you break that down. So
As far as he's concerned, man, if I just got laid more, all this stuff, problems would go away. It's like, no.
the problems wouldn't go away, they'd just be a little bit more tolerable, I think.
There you go.
Until you're ready for the next round. So no, I feel you, man. And guys are pretty simple like that, right? Like, you know what? Food,
Yes.
sex, and leave me the hell alone every now and then. Yeah, those are pretty much, the common core things that guys kind of want. And,
Yes.
I think if you can kind of up the frequency on sex, most guys are just willing to kind of deal with it, even though they happen to be in an abusive relationship, don't identify as, well, I'm getting laid, so ain't all that bad, so but
Yep.
it's good that you can help point that out and ask that question, that underlying question, like, well, okay, well, if you're not getting laid, what's your wife like? What's her personality? Maybe we can find out, and then they go into they spill the whole beans on you, man, and it's like,
Yeah.
wow. So what does success look like for you in this situation?
I would love to be able to drop the day job and do this full time.
Mhm.
I'd like to have a nice steady income as a result of the books, which will in turn allow me to write more articles and talk more one-on-one with guys and have the group sessions and so forth.
Mhm.
That's as far as a passion is concerned. How do you gauge what's your passion, what isn't? When I'm writing, 4 hours can go by and it feels like 2 seconds.
Wow.
When I'm chatting with guys, it's like, wow, an hour's up already. I thought we just started. So I know those are the things that really get my juices going and
Mhm.
gets my heart pumping, and that's the stuff that I really love.
Yeah.
So if I could devote myself to that more, that'd be wonderful. But slowly but surely, we're getting there.
Okay.
I have in the past 6 months, I did hire a gentleman to help me out with some of the IT side of things and marketing, because I was very much clueless in that realm.
Mhm.
And since working with him, the income has tripled. So if I can keep that progress going, we'll be on our way, I think.
Well, I mean, you offer something that, like I said, you don't see much of unless you really, really have to dig for it, man. So, hey, any way we can promote you and support you, man, I'm definitely down to do so.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So everything that it's gone through and everything, how has it made you stronger?
It's kind of sad in a way that it's kind of de-romanticized me in a way as far as relationships are concerned. I look at things much more pragmatically, much more of, nuts and bolts. Let's take a lot of the silliness out of the thing as far as romance is concerned and as far as relationships are concerned. And it's not just romantic relationships. It's affected me professionally and how I deal with people on a professional level, how I deal with friends, the concept of putting up boundaries, which is, this is what I'm not going to put up with,
Right.
or this is what I expect out of you, Mr. Friend or Mrs. Wife, or whatever it may be. Again, those are concepts that I really had very little concept of prior to all this happening. What I call my holy shit moment. After I had my holy shit moment, and I think every guy needs to go through some semblance of a holy shit moment, your wake up call. And then you go, oh, you recognize what it is you're made of, what your deficiencies are, and so forth. And I tell you, be completely blunt, I discovered that I had a really hard time coping emotionally with all this. Mm-hmm. I mean, it whittled me down to nothing. And it was so shocking to me that I'm like, wow, I really am not as tough as I thought I was.
Did you seek like professional help for this, like counseling or anything?
Yes, I did. I did see a woman briefly. I'm trying to think if there was somebody. And then she in turn turned me on to chatting with other guys who had been through the same thing. Mm-hmm. And that was what really opened the doors for, oh, this is kind of a really common thing. And then, some guy I talked to said, have you been online? There's a forum for guys that have been through this. Go here. And I went there and said, oh, wow. All these people are like saying the exact same story. This is kind of creepy. It's all very, very, very similar. And that was the major turning point for me. The counselor herself was just kind of a pointer. She said, go over there, talk to these guys. Uh-huh. She was smart enough to realize this is very much a guy's issue. And you need a guy's perspective. And you guys tend to work well when you are in little groups together. Mm-hmm. And the women have naturally their own groups like we talked about. So she recognized that you need to go learn from other guys. And that's what I did.
Right. Okay.
And I'm kind of sharing the love, paying it forward, so to speak.
That's good. Do you still keep in touch with those guys? That was initially your crew?
Very early on, those guys, I think one. And he has done very well for himself. Good. Remarried, the whole nine. His story, it was awful to begin with. He's the one guy we're Facebook friends and all that. The rest of them, I think, have kind of fallen by the wayside. Okay. Life gets in the way.
Well, hopefully they're doing well, man. They got up and running again. So let me ask you. So here's the $1 million question: have you confronted your ex about all of this stuff? Have y'all readdressed this later on in life?
No.
No.
Once it was done, it was done, and we don't have any friendly conversations. Everything is very logistical about kids, and that's pretty much it.
Wow.
It's very much a business, kind of like friendly neighbors.
Now,
how you doing? That's about it.
Yeah, just very business about the kids and keep it moving, right?
I have to say, no animosity, outright anger, none of that between us. Never been insulting or anything like that. It's just been a very cold, distant business relationship.
Wow, that's I mean, it's understandable, but that's tough. Would you be open? Like, let's say she came to you one day, like, hey, I want to talk to you about this. Maybe I went about the wrong way. Would you be open to have that conversation? Or
I think so. As long as it's coming from a good place and it's not. One thing I've noticed over the years is that if there is a tinge of super friendliness in her tone, I'm like, oh, here we go, here it comes. And then sure enough,
like looking behind you and stuff, right?
And then sure enough, the next day, could you take the kids for the next week and a half? Because I have to go. Okay, there we go. So if she were to come to me with such a request, my first thought would be, oh, here we go.
What do you want? What's coming behind it, right? Oh, man. So do you think you have closure on the whole situation?
I'm sorry, do I have what again?
Do you have closure?
Yes, I do. In terms of, I don't have any open-ended anything. It's, I'm not going to, a lot of guys struggle with that I just need answers to these questions that are in the air. No. And some guys get very specific about it. Like, well, what about that last Christmas when she said this and this? What did that mean exactly? Did that mean she was having affairs back then? Mm-hmm. What about that day when she didn't answer her phone? Like, guys get really obsessive in that way.
Right.
I've wiped all those off the table. It's what's done is done type of thing. And I think a good way for me to prove to myself that I'm past it and closure is that I don't have any animosity or any ill will towards her.
Okay.
I'm not one of these guys that sits back and says, haha, she's broke now, or she got dumped by her boyfriend or whatever. That's insignificant. It's just, I'm indifferent to all of that. It's just, and in fact, if I were to hear like she, hit the lottery tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, cool. Good for her, or if she got married to the love of her life, I'd be like, wonderful. Have at it. I'm not wishing ill will. I'm not one of those guys that sits back and says karma's going to get her in the end. It will or it won't. Regardless, I'm still me.
Right. I mean, that's mature within itself, man. Because reading how things went down with you and just how cold it seemed, man. Like I would have been pissed, man. I would have been looking to burn the world down. But you're right. What is it going to do? It's just, I guess the best revenge is to live well, right?
There you go. Exactly.
So let me ask you one more question. Do you know who the guy was, or have you met this guy? Because
they're still together.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. Recently moved in together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very well aware of him. We've not really had a chat or anything, but we have shaken hands and said hello, and that's about the end of it.
Oh, wow. Man.
Yeah.
Oof. Well, hey, hats off to you, man, because I don't know if I could have done that one, man. And
that was more for the kids who were standing there staring at the time.
Okay.
It was that was relatively early on too. That was like, not even a year after D-Day, and at the kids' soccer game, and it was their day with her, so they were all already there sitting, and he was there. Mm-hmm. And so I had one of those awkward moments of, do I put my chair around the other side of the field? What am I supposed to do here? So I just plopped right down next to them and kind of leaned over and said, "Hey, and I'm Ralph. Nice to meet you. It's nice meeting you." And the kids were all just kind of staring like, "Oh boy."
Oh, shit.
And that was the end of that. So.
All right. Well, I mean, that's cool, man. I'm glad that fellow Marauders, like I said, you got to hear the story. You got to read this story just to know, what this man's been through. And I'm not saying it's greater or less than anybody else's experience, but just to read it, man, it's just, man, it sucks, man. I can't put it either way. But I'm glad that you found something on the other end of it, right? Like a way to help people and mentor these guys who are going through the same thing, who may not be strong enough to pull themselves up and find a way to work themselves through this. So, hey, I appreciate it, man. Hey, D.S.O, you are officially a Marauder. I appreciate your time on the show and lending your story and telling us about, the Dad Starting Over brand and, the process and all that stuff. So before we wrap it up, man, you got any final thoughts? Anything you want to put out there?
Just check out the website, dadstartingover.com. You can find the books, like I said, in all the major retailers. Amazon's the big one. Do a search for Dead Bedroom Fix, Now What? Red Flags, all by D.S.O is the name of the author. That's me. And dadstartingover.com can get you to all these things. You can check out the D.S.O fraternity. You can check out the books. You can check out the Facebook groups, the whole 9 yards right from there.
Okay, there it is. So you heard it from the man himself, D.S.O. Hey, he's putting out good stuff, folks. So you got anything new coming out? Any books? You working on a new book or anything?
I've been toying with. I just did an updated version of the Dead Bedroom Fix for 2020. Okay. That's been 3 years of the previous version, so that's just getting updated just now. It's going out to all the retailers. Fraternity members get to download it and listen to the audio already.
Nice.
But I've been toying with the idea of maybe some kind of fictional story, like almost like a novel with the theme of a guy going through all this. I don't know. It kind of gets me excited to think about doing something like that. The only negative is that it's kind of funny. Men don't buy fiction. Men buy nonfiction, self-help stuff, or how-to manuals and stuff like that.
Yeah, how to. I think your story and everything you're doing will make for a really badass like Showtime or HBO type series.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
well, put the feelers out there. HBO, if you're listening.
Yeah, take a different dude, and you're a central figure in the show, but it shows their process, and it comes back to you at the look. I just made that up for you, man. So no biggie.
Appreciate
it. but no, I really, I think that would play out really well. So, hey man, just keep rocking, keep putting out the good stuff, helping the brothers out there. What's your shout outs? Who you want to shout out?
Oh, who do I want to shout out? Shout out to all the guys who've been reading the books and buying it. Shout out to, I got some regulars out there, Jack London, Austin, Noor, Ryan, all the regulars. Well, you put me on the spot. Who am I gonna to my wife? I'm sure my wife's gonna listen to this. Her nickname is Button.
Okay.
So as in cute as a button.
Right.
So Button, if you're listening to this, I love you. Thank you. Right. And I guess that's about it.
Cool. All right. So for me, your boy Kellz, hey, I I want to get a shout out to D.S.O. Thank you for, like I said, coming on, man, lending your time. We finally were able to make it happen. Definitely also the listeners and the viewers out there. Thank you for, supporting the show, supporting Culture Marauders brand. All the parents out there, everybody who was dual hatting it, as a teacher and stuff like that. Hey, well-earned summer out there. All the protesters and stuff, doing it peacefully. All the brothers and sisters of all color out there marching, trying to take care of this equality thing, man. Let's tie up these loose ends on a thing, something our country has been neglecting for far too long. Also, the healthcare workers out there, those who are still doing the job day in and day out. Every episode, I'm going to tell you, I appreciate you. Thank you, for keeping us safe, taking care of the sick ones out there. Also our military, still doing the job, still deploying while dealing with this COVID stuff on top of, this racial situation we got going on in our country. And, that's it. Like I said, the essential workers, things are going to be ramping up here soon. I see COVID is not gone by any chance. Matter of fact, it's come back stronger than ever. It looks like it's bringing hell with it. So thank you to y'all, the folks that keep the shelves stocked. When I'm looking for my toilet paper, my Lysol wipe, appreciate y'all, man, keeping those stocked, because without it, I don't know where we'd be. So thank you. With that being said, hey, if you guys got something you want to maraud on, for me, Kellz, I'm finding people with good stories, good backgrounds, good stories, good entertainment, and value, things that you can pull from these and apply to your daily life. If you got something you want to maraud on, there's a number of ways you can hit us up on Instagram at _culture_marauders. Hit us up on Instagram, Facebook at the Culture Marauders. And if you want to email us and you got a question or something that you want to hear about, you want us to delve into, hit us up at theculturemarauders@gmail.com. So with that being said, hey, happy Father's Day. I know we said it. This is a little two-part Father's Day where, like I said, we wilded out a little bit yesterday, had a little bit of fun talking about how to take care of dad sexually and, dad's needs on Father's Day and year round. Yeah, you missed that one, D.S.O. That was a good one. But, and then, we drove home a little bit of a serious message, taking care of the dads and, out there who are, going through divorce or, dealing with those infidelity and things like that, how to get back up on your feet. So happy Father's Day, dads. Keep trucking. Hit up that barbecue grill this weekend and put out some good stuff for the fam and for the kids. So D.S.O, hey, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Like I say, you're official Marauder. You're welcome back on the show. I'm going to have to get a book from you, man. I want to get an autograph or a signed book from you so I can keep in my collection.
I will make that happen.
Right on. So, hey, from the Culture Marauders, I'm going to leave with this. One culture, one blood, one love. Peace.